Look what we're making today, Christmas fudge. We're going to make two different kinds, a nice Christmassy red and green, and a candy cane fudge. Let's dig in. We need a pan, a nice square pan should do, lined with parchment paper. We'll pull out a bowl that is about 12 ounces of vanilla chips. It's going to go in the microwave, 1 minute. And of course that's not going to melt it all down. But we've got to add some icing to it. This is 1 can of vanilla icing right out of the tub from the store. Now you could make your own. I don't know why that wouldn't work too. This was a lot easier, let's be honest. So it does end up having that little store-bought icing kind of flavor to it. It still worked out good for a first timer. Another trick is you want to combine the chips with the icing, because it's going to end up going back in the microwave so we can melt it all down. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just wanted to make sure that it was as combined as possible. So let's get it back in. Now this time it's only going to be for 30 seconds. It comes out. Now I can already tell there's a bit of a difference. So we mix it around and it's looking pretty good. I'll have to scrape the bottom a little bit. Back in it goes because we're trying to melt it obviously. And we only do it 15-20 seconds at a time. Kind of like that. So now you can see it's got the consistency of runny pancake mix actually by the time it's done. Looking pretty close. I think we're going to put it in one more time just to make sure we got it melted to where we need it to be. And after another 15 seconds, look at that. Pretty well puddingy, so we'll give her a stir. That's looking pretty good there. On to the next step. We've got 2 containers and some of that icing is going in the 2 containers, which should be about 3/4 of a cup. Honestly, I found that I probably could have done even less for a better effect. It's the first time I've ever tried it. Hey, what can I say? This is how you learn, right? Because it doesn't look like there's a whole lot in there, and the rest we save because that's going to be our base, our white base. And then to these 2 containers, some food coloring. We've got some green dye and some red dye. So first the green dye. And of course I haven't worked with dye much, so I'm not really sure how much we need. So we're going to try it once, which I thought was tons, but look at how light green that is. I really want it darker than that. So we try it a second time. Yeah, it's looking a little better. Still not quite there. Third time. And I'm getting a little worried that we're not going to get her down to super dark green, which is what I want. I don't really want to use the whole thing of dye. But it's getting a little darker, so that gives me some hope. So we try a 4th time. And I've used about half that little bottle of dye. Well, I think it's going to be green enough for now. I don't know that I want to dump the whole thing in, just in case I ever want to make it again. So there's what we got. Now let's do the red. I'm not even going to mess around. I'm just going to put in just about the same amount of dye as I put in for the green, just right off the bat, because I don't want to play with pink. Let's just hope this gets her nice and red. And yeah, it does look a lot better. You know, my preference is probably a lot darker for both. But you got to work with what you got. So there's our die. We'll put them aside. Now let's make some fudge. Well, here we go. Our pan's down. The idea here is we take our vanilla part of the fudge, and that becomes our base. Now, it's only been long enough to make the red and green parts, and the chips are already starting to harden up a little bit. Oh, you can't wait forever to do this. You got to do it fairly quick, and you can see it's a little thick. It's not really runny at all. Here's our green dye, and this is where I think half of what I made would have been more than enough. Because you can't really see the white. Well, you can underneath. But by the time I'm done, it's going to have covered everything up. So there's the green part. Now I got to fit the red in. And of course you're almost doubling the volume of the fudge that you started with. It still looks pretty cool. I'm trying to cover everything up. And I think if I would have worked at it, I probably could have got more of the white up to the top. The idea is you take a butter knife and you just kind of swirl it. I've done that before. I mean, you know, it's fun to do. So I'm just going to swirl it back and forth a few times, and hopefully it'll kind of look different. It is kind of Christmassy looking regardless of how it ends up. And let's get that in the fridge. The fudge number 2 is candy cane fudge. Yum-o. So of course I got my other square pan with parchment paper. We'll put that aside. Now we need some candy canes. So that's just a box of candy canes. Then I had to unwrap them all. Well, I took half of the candy canes in the box. Now we got to put them in a bag and we're going to crush them up. And that was a lot of fun unwrapping the damn candy canes. 1 is cool. 8 was a pain. So I tried banging it. At the end of the day, I found it was easier to use my rolling pin, and it shook the table like there was no tomorrow. And by the time I was done, I realized it wasn't enough candy canes. So I did the same thing with the rest of the candy canes. Ended up with 2 bags, which worked out to about a cup. So into a pot on low heat. This is sweetened condensed milk, 1 can. And to that are vanilla chips, 2 bags worth, which is roughly, it's about 20 ounces, neighborhood of 600 grams. And then we're going to melt it slowly down. It really doesn't take that long to melt down, but you got to keep it on low so you don't burn it, you know. And there you go. After a few minutes, we're done. Well, I mean, we're done the melting part. So that looks pretty good. It's thick. It's almost like a batter. So this is a 1.5 teaspoons of peppermint. And you know, I guess if you like peppermint, throw in a little extra. That's what I was thinking. We are going to put in about 3/4 of the broken candy canes. And of course that all gets mixed together. Here's our pan. The same thing. Into the pan goes our candy cane soon to be fudge. Just like that. So we're going to spread this around just to make it as neat as possible. And we're not really adding anything to it except the rest of the candy canes. So we'll sprinkle them around, kind of mush them onto the top ever so nicely and gentle. And really, there you go. That's our second fudge into the fridge. You want to keep them in the fridge for at least a couple hours. I kept them overnight, and here they are. There's our Christmas and candy cane fudge. Yummy, they look fantastic. So let's get them out of the pan and chop them up. And it's a good thing you use parchment or wax paper because it makes it so much easier. They pop right out of the pan. Of course, now it's just getting the paper off. So we peel it off. Now you can see here it's nice and red and green on the top and white on the bottom. It's still going to be fudgy. Cut her up into pieces. And of course I've got to try one. Next up is a candy cane fudge. Same idea. Flip it upside down, take it out of the pan. Get that paper off. And chop it up into bite-sized pieces. That looks fantastic. Is a little more difficult cutting through the candy canes, but they are a little softer. And there you have it. A great fudgy Christmas treat for everybody. Hey, another great recipe. I hope you'll give it a try. Leave me a comment below, one way or the other. Listen, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell because that'll tell you the next time I upload a video. Feel free to share this and any of my other videos. And thanks for stopping by and watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.